My brother-in-law wrecked my work truck and lied about a job interview. So, I kicked him out. Now my wife won't talk to me. Was I wrong to kick him out? I, 37M, own a small landscaping business that I built from scratch over the last 6 years. My wife Lena, 34F, and I have been married for 8 years, and we've worked hard to get where we are today. We met in a community college where I was studying mechanics and she was taking art classes. I fixed her bike one day when the chain broke outside the student union, and we hit it off right away. The early years were tough. We lived in a tiny one-bedroom apartment, ate ramen noodles most nights, and saved every penny we could. Lena worked double shifts at a local diner to help us stay afloat while I was getting my business started. For the first 2 years, I barely made enough to cover our rent, but she never complained. We were a team. Eventually, things picked up. Last year, we bought our first house, nothing fancy, just a modest 3-bedroom with a decent yard in a quiet neighborhood. That's when the problem started. Lena's younger brother Mark, 30M, has always been what you might call a free spirit. Growing up, he was constantly in trouble, skipping school, getting into fights, borrowing money and never paying it back. Their parents always made excuses for him. He was just exploring his options or finding himself or whatever other phrase justified his behavior. Mark can't seem to keep a job for more than a few months. Every time he gets fired, he has some elaborate explanation about why it wasn't his fault. The boss had it out for him. The hours were unfair. The work was beneath him. And every single time he loses a job, he shows up at our doorstep looking for help. At first, we kept it small. $20 here, $50 there. A few nights on our couch when he was between apartments. Lena always gave me that look, wide eyes, slight pout, and said things like, "He's family, Mitch." I understood. Family is important. But there's a line between helping family and enabling them. About 10 months ago, Mark lost his apartment. According to him, his roommate skipped town without paying his share of the rent. He showed up at our door with a duffel bag, looking like a stray puppy in the rain. Lena immediately invited him in. He said it would just be for a few weeks until he found a new place. Those weeks turned into months, and before we knew it, he had fully moved into our guest bedroom. He contributes nothing. He eats our food, uses our utilities, and never once offered to chip in for groceries or bills. Whenever I bring it up, he has an excuse ready. He's between jobs. He's waiting on a check. He had an unexpected expense. Meanwhile, my hard-earned money pays for his lifestyle. 6 months ago, things got worse. Mark lost his latest job, something about a personality conflict with a manager, and his car broke down. He claimed he couldn't afford to fix it. Then came the request that started all this trouble. He asked to borrow my work truck to look for jobs. My truck isn't just transportation, it's a critical part of my business. I use it to haul equipment, meet clients, and get to job sites. It's a 2018 Ford F-150, nothing fancy, but reliable and essential to my livelihood. Despite my better judgment, I agreed to let him use it occasionally for job hunting. Big mistake. Mark started treating my truck like his personal vehicle. He took it without asking, returned it late, and left fast food wrappers and empty soda cans all over the cab. Worst of all, he never put gas in it. I'd go out in the morning to head to a job site and find the tank nearly empty. When I confronted him about the gas, he just shrugged and said he was broke. Then he had the nerve to say, "What's the problem? We're family. What's yours is mine, right?" I tried to explain that this was a work vehicle, not a toy, but he just rolled his eyes like I was being uptight. The situation caused tension between Lena and me. She knows her brother is taking advantage, but she struggles to stand up to him. Their mom died when they were teenagers, and Lena feels responsible for him in some way. She's always making excuses for his behavior, saying he just needs more time or another chance. Last week was the breaking point. I had an early morning meeting with a potential client, a large apartment complex that would be a huge contract for my business. I went out to the driveway at 6:30 a.m., and my truck was gone. Mark had taken it the night before without asking and hadn't returned it. I had to call an Uber and nearly missed the meeting. I spent the entire time checking my phone, worried about my truck and fuming about Mark's disrespect. Mark rolled in around noon, acting like nothing was wrong. When I confronted him, he laughed and called me uptight and materialistic. He said, "It's just a truck," and told me I needed to learn to share. That's when I lost it. I told him he was no longer allowed to use my truck under any circumstances, and that it was time for him to find his own place. He got defensive immediately, calling me selfish and saying that family is supposed to look out for each other. He reminded me that's how their parents raised them, to help family when they're down. But this wasn't about helping anymore. This was about respect and boundaries, neither of which Mark seemed to understand. Lena was caught in the middle. She agreed that Mark went too far this time, but she's worried about him having nowhere to go. She thinks I'm being too harsh and that we should give him one more chance. She's also concerned about causing a rift in the family. Her dad would be furious if he found out we abandoned Mark. The thing is, I've tried to help Mark in constructive ways. I've given him job leads, offered to help him create a budget, suggested vocational programs. He always has an excuse for why those won't work. It's like he's allergic to responsibility. The situation is driving a wedge between Lena and me. We're arguing more, and our home doesn't feel like our own anymore. There's constant tension in the air. I love my wife deeply, but I feel like we're enabling Mark's behavior, and it's hurting all of us. Lena says I don't understand sibling relationships because I'm an only child. Maybe she's right, but I do understand the difference between supporting someone and letting them take advantage of you. I'm worried about what this means for our future. If we ever have kids, will Lena set appropriate boundaries? Will Mark always come first? So here's my question. Was I wrong to put my foot down and tell Mark he needs to leave? Am I being selfish, or am I justified in wanting my home and my business back? Update 1. It's been 2 weeks since my original post. At first, things seemed to calm down. Mark stopped asking for the truck and appeared to be looking for jobs online. Lena was relieved, thinking the situation was improving. I remained skeptical but hoped for the best. Lena and I had several long talks about the situation. She shared more about growing up with Mark, how he was always the problem child but also how he stood up for her against bullies when they were kids. I gained some understanding of her perspective, though I still disagreed with how she handled him. Last Saturday was our 8th wedding anniversary. We had planned a nice dinner at an upscale Italian restaurant downtown, a place we'd been wanting to try for months. It was supposed to be a chance for us to reconnect and put all this tension behind us. As we were getting ready to leave, Mark approached us with a big smile on his face. He said he had great news. He had landed a job interview at a warehouse across town. The catch? The interview was scheduled for the next morning, exactly when I needed my truck for a major landscaping job at a corporate office park. Mark emphasized that this was his big break, the opportunity that would get him back on his feet. He promised to fill the gas tank and have the truck back early. Lena gave me the pleading look I've come to know so well. I felt trapped. On one hand, I remembered all the previous disappointments. On the other, what if this time was different? What if this really was the job that turned things around? I thought about my client. I could probably reschedule. If Mark actually got a job, it might be worth the inconvenience. Against my better judgment, I agreed to lend him the truck. Lena hugged me and told me what a great brother-in-law I was. For a moment, it felt like things might be looking up. We went to our anniversary dinner, but I couldn't fully enjoy it. I kept thinking about my truck and whether Mark would actually treat it with respect this time. Lena tried to reassure me, saying she was proud of me for giving her brother another chance. We talked about our future, maybe starting a family next year if my business continued to grow. But the worry gnawed at me throughout the meal. The next morning, I woke up at 6 a.m. to get ready for work. Mark and my truck were nowhere to be found. Lena tried calling him, but the call went straight to voicemail. Hours passed with no sign of Mark or my truck. I had to call my client and reschedule, which was embarrassing and potentially damaging to my business reputation. Lena kept making excuses. Maybe he overslept, maybe his phone died, maybe there was an emergency. Around 2 p.m., Mark stumbled through our front door. He reeked of alcohol and could barely stand straight. There had been no job interview. He confessed he had gone out drinking with his friends all night and into the morning. The truck was parked somewhere, he couldn't remember exactly where. It took us 3 hours to locate it in a bar parking lot across town. When we found the truck, my stomach dropped. There was a large dent in the passenger door, empty beer cans in the truck bed, and a cracked windshield. My work vehicle, the backbone of my business, was damaged because of Mark's irresponsibility. I was so angry I could barely see straight. When we got home, I confronted Mark about his lies and the damage to my truck. He laughed it off, saying I could afford to fix it and that I needed to stop being so uptight. Then he asked if we had any aspirin for his hangover. That was it. I told Mark he had 24 hours to pack his things and leave our house. No more chances, no more excuses, no more disrespect. I was done being taken advantage of. Lena was upset. She couldn't defend her brother's actions this time, but she still tried to suggest that we all talk about it when everyone had calmed down. I told her we were past discussion. I felt betrayed, not just by Mark, but by the whole situation. Mark alternated between begging to stay and accusing me of tearing the family apart. He tried to guilt-trip Lena with childhood memories and family obligations. Then he called their dad to intervene, painting himself as the victim. Right now, Mark is packing his things. Lena is distraught, crying and looking through old family photos. I'm standing firm but feeling the weight of the situation. I know I'm doing the right thing, but seeing Lena in pain makes me question myself. I'm angry that she can't fully see how much harm her brother is causing us. The whole experience has made me worry about our future. If we have kids, will they turn out like Mark? Will Lena struggle with setting boundaries with them? And what about Mark himself? He's never really had to fend for himself before. The question I keep coming back to is, how do I support my wife while still maintaining necessary boundaries? How do we move forward from here? Are we even on the same page about what family means, protection versus enabling? The uncertainty of it all weighs heavily on me. I might have won the battle about Mark leaving, but I worry about the cost to my marriage. The truck can be fixed, but repairing trust is much harder. Update 2. It's been about a month since Mark left our house. Things between Lena and me remain tense. We were both hurting, and our communication suffered. We moved around each other like strangers, barely talking beyond necessities. Last Sunday, everything changed. We were relaxing at home when there was a loud knock on the door. I opened it to find Lena's parents standing there, unannounced and clearly upset. They had been talking to Mark and had come to demand answers about why we had abandoned their son. Mark had fed them a completely different story. According to him, we had thrown him out without warning, leaving him homeless and desperate. He claimed I was selfish and had turned Lena against her family. Lena's father was red-faced with anger. He accused me of being heartless and made vague threats about teaching me a lesson. Her mother was crying, asking how we could be so cold to poor Mark. I tried to explain what really happened, but they weren't listening. I was about to lose my cool with my father-in-law when Lena stepped in. She stood between us and, to my surprise, firmly addressed her parents. This was a side of her I rarely saw. She was usually much more reserved when it came to confronting her family. Calmly but firmly, Lena laid out everything Mark had done. The lying. The drinking. The damaged truck. The missed opportunities. The broken promises. The strain on our marriage. As she spoke, her parents' expressions changed from anger to shock to disbelief. They had no idea about any of it. Mark had told them a completely different, self-victimizing story. As the truth dawned on them, we all moved to the living room for an impromptu family meeting. More revelations followed. Mark had been manipulating everyone with different versions of the same stories. He had borrowed money from his parents, claiming it was for rent, during the same period he was living rent-free with us. The web of lies was extensive and calculated. Then came the bombshell. Lena's mom tearfully revealed that she had found betting slips in Mark's old room while cleaning. She had been too afraid to confront him about it. The realization hit all of us at once: the job interviews and business opportunities were likely covers for gambling activities. Lena was devastated. She felt betrayed not only by her brother but also by herself for enabling his behavior for so long. The crisis brought us closer together. For the first time since this whole ordeal began, we were truly united on the Mark situation. Her parents apologized to me for their initial reaction. They admitted they had been blind to Mark's faults for years, making excuses rather than addressing the real issues. The four of us had a difficult but necessary conversation about what to do next. We all agreed that Mark needed professional help, not handouts. His parents found a rehab program that specialized in gambling addiction and offered to pay for it. The condition was that Mark had to commit to completing the entire program. When we all confronted Mark about the gambling, he initially denied it. Then he tried to downplay it. Finally, seeing that none of us were buying his excuses anymore, he broke down. It was the first time I'd seen any real vulnerability from him. He admitted he needed help, which was a crucial first step. Last week, Mark checked into the rehab program. It's a 3-month intensive course, and he won't have outside contact for the first month. It's tough, but we all agree it's necessary. Meanwhile, Lena and I are focusing on rebuilding. We started seeing a family counselor to work through the issues this ordeal has raised. We're confronting hard truths about our own relationship and establishing healthier boundaries. For the first time in months, we feel like we're on the same page. I remain cautiously optimistic but wary. Mark has a long road ahead, and recovery from addiction is never straightforward. For now, our priority is our own relationship and healing the damage that's been done. We're talking about the future again. The possibility of starting a family someday. Clyde's working overtime to recover financially from the truck incident, and Lena has been incredibly supportive, helping with paperwork and scheduling. We're taking it one day at a time. There will likely be setbacks, but we've learned the importance of boundaries. Whatever happens with Mark, Lena and I are committed to maintaining the health of our own household first. Update 3. It's been 6 months since my last update, and I wanted to share how things have progressed. Mark completed the 3-month rehab program and, to everyone's surprise, he seems like a completely different person. Even I was shocked by the transformation. About 2 months ago, Mark asked to meet with Lena and me. I was reluctant based on past experiences, but Lena wanted to give him a chance. I agreed, and we met at the coffee shop where Lena and I had our first date, neutral ground with good memories for us. When Mark arrived, the change was immediately apparent. He looked healthier and more put together. The nervous energy that always surrounded him was gone. He seemed calmer and more focused. Mark apologized to us both. Not a generic sorry for everything but specific acknowledgments of the harm he'd caused. He talked about the lies he'd told, the boundaries he'd crossed, and the strain he'd put on our marriage. There were no excuses or justifications, just ownership of his actions. He then outlined his plan for the future. He'd found a job at a manufacturing plant, not glamorous work, but steady with benefits. He was continuing therapy and attending Gamblers Anonymous meetings twice weekly. He showed us a 60-day sobriety chip he'd earned. Then he handed me an envelope. Inside was a check for a significant portion of the cost to repair my truck. He explained that he'd sold his gaming systems and electronics to start making amends. He also proposed a payment plan to cover the remaining cost over time. I admitted to him that I'd been skeptical about his recovery. Mark acknowledged that skepticism was fair, given his history of broken promises. He talked about the work he'd done in rehab, addressing root causes, developing healthier coping mechanisms, rebuilding his self-esteem. He had specific plans and goals, not just vague intentions. Lena was overjoyed. She hugged her brother and told him how proud she was of his progress. I could see the relief on her face, like a weight had been lifted. I appreciated the apology and the effort Mark was making, but I made it clear that trust takes time to rebuild. Mark said he understood completely and was prepared to prove himself through actions, not just words. That response alone showed significant growth. We agreed to take things slow. Mark is not moving back in with us, that boundary remains firm. But we're open to family dinners and occasional visits, provided he continues to respect our boundaries. He even offered to help me with landscaping jobs on weekends to earn extra money for the repayments. Lena and I are doing better than ever. The ordeal ultimately strengthened our relationship. We learned to communicate more effectively, to present a united front, and to balance loyalty with self-respect. We're talking about starting a family again, feeling more prepared for parenthood after navigating this crisis together. Mark's recovery is ongoing, and there's always the possibility of relapse. We're all aware of that. But for now, I'm cautiously hopeful. Everyone has grown through this experience. Lena found her voice and learned to set boundaries. I developed more patience and understanding, and Mark finally seems to be growing up. The truck is fixed now. My business recovered from the setback and is actually doing better than before. Lena and I are looking at possibly expanding our house next year instead of moving, adding a home office for her as she started taking on freelance design work. We've learned that family support doesn't mean enabling destructive behavior. Sometimes the most supportive thing you can do is establish clear boundaries and hold people accountable. That lesson was painful to learn, but invaluable for all of us moving forward.